How's everyone doing today? So wonderful to be here, and I want to reiterate an excellent question that Jason asked before he was wrapping. Who are you and what do you really want? Now, I work with so many executives in private boardrooms, and rarely do they actually ask themselves that question. Who are you and what do you really want? Mainly because after you've worked years, after you've put in the time, put in the skills, rarely do we give ourselves the grace to evolve. Rarely do we actually give ourselves the permission to ask ourselves that question. Who are you and what do we really want? Now, I can answer that for you today. Who I am is an executive leadership strategist. I work with clients all around the world who are ready to become industry disruptors. But what I want today is to let you know that you are designed to disrupt. And I also want to let you know that we have a Herculean task, that we are taking a very complex concept and we are putting it in the next 15 minutes. But I invite you to come with me for this journey to learn something new. And I think that's going to force us to be as simple as possible. And so this is a message that I really want you to almost bypass your brain with and let it speak to your heart. Because it's going to give context to all of the things that we've been learning about today. What is it that drives us? What is it that motivates us? What is it that makes us operate the way we operate? It's a special time when you actually get to take a moment and reflect. This is also something I find very special. This is the largest mural in the world, the largest outdoor mural in the world, and it's located in Incheon, South Korea. It's approximately 24,000 square meters. It took 22 artists to complete, and the estimated cost was about 550 million won. If you could see a little bit closer, you'll see that they chose the largest canvas in the world to chronicle the story of a little boy's life. You could see inspirational titles like Dream Chaser or Go Forward Steadily, that takes him through the different seasons of life from beginning to end, giving him hope all along the way. You know what else is very special? You. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's a mistake. My slide didn't complete. Actually, you are not special. That's what I meant to say. That's what I meant to say. You are not special. That's the end of the talk. Thank you. I appreciate you. No. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm not going to leave you hanging there. But I do believe you are not special in a certain way. I understand we are absolutely in a day and age where we are starting to get it. We're starting to see the value of diversity. We're starting to see others and what they have to offer, the value of their skill sets, the value of their beliefs, the value of their own values and their thoughts and their merits. But there is something that ties us together more than we could ever think. Even though we think different things, even though we believe different things, throughout the tapestry of our own experiences, throughout the ebbs and flows of our life, there is one thing that we all want, one thing that binds us together. We are all searching for that exact same thing, and that thing is significance. When we think about what it is that we want to accomplish, what it is that we want to become, who it is that we want to become, all of us on some level, to some extent, are craving some form of significance. We want to know that we mean something, that we are going to be remembered in some way, that the extent of our work and the imprint of everything we care for and believe about will extend beyond our own existence. In fact, you can see in a recent study, 70% of employees from a McKinsey study cited that they search for meaning at work. And that number is even higher for the younger population as well. And so you might ask, what does significance have to do with design at all? Now, I'll admit I am not a designer. I cannot do anything that you all can do with ease. But what I do firmly believe, is that significance is anchored in design. I submit to you, actually, that significance has everything to do with design, and that you as creatives who understand the heart of the human experience, you as creatives who are able to see both the beauty in the human experience as well as the data, understanding the balance and the nuance of what it takes to bring life to something, need to understand that significance is absolutely anchored in design. You are primed to understand its intersectionality in a way that other people will never be able to comprehend. But because you are also naturally wired that way, there is a danger. The only way to actually achieve a life of significance is to understand its design. But the danger of being a student of it is that sometimes we forget to actually experience it ourselves. We forget to give ourselves the same grace. We forget to give ourselves the same space so that we are able to actually ask, what does it mean to be significant in this moment? What does it mean to show up? And so if we delve a little bit more into what significance is, you will understand that significance means it's a quality or character that should mark a thing as important. I highlighted two words here, the word mark and the word important, because at the end of the day, I believe that significance boils down to two things: meaning and movement. How do you establish remembrance? How do you establish feeling? How do you make something valuable and inherently meaningful is something that marks it as significant. And then the movement piece, how are you creating transformation? How are you moving someone forward? How are you doing something that is causing someone to actually make an imprint in their life to show that you have done something that is worth moving them forward? So if we break that down a little bit further and we understand that if significance comes down to two things, meaning and movement, let's look at what it means to actually build the meaningful phase of our life. I believe that these actually parallel with two phases of life that are very concrete. We start with what I call the meaningful journey. That's at the beginning when we are growing, we are building, we are learning about ourselves. We're learning about what we believe in, what we stand for, and what is important to us. We learn about our people that we love. We learn about our careers. We learn about the money that we want to make. We learn about our belief systems. That's the period where we really figure out, what am I good at? What am I capable at? What is it that I can actually go out and exist with? I was in this particular phase as well. I remember being in roles where I was at the top organizations and I had a career that was enviable. I had positions that other people wanted. They always asked me, how did you get into that space? How did you get that particular role? But internally, there was turmoil happening within me because even though I had built a career that was enviable, I didn't love it. I didn't feel called to it. And so instead of asking myself, what do I really want? Who am I supposed to be? I buried it because I was getting applause for all of the career accolades. I was good at what I did. I was competent at what I did. I showed up fully in what I did. But that doesn't mean I was actually supposed to be there. And what it caused me was to start doubting myself. What it caused me was to start going down a spiral when I started asking myself questions like this. And if maybe you've asked yourself some of these questions. Even when I do well, I don't think I really deserve it. I worry that people will find out I'm not as smart as they think I am. I feel like I'm just making things up as I go along. It's hard for me to accept compliments. I've told myself I'm not ready for promotions, even if the evidence does prove that way. You may feel as if you've been in a tug of war as well. Even though you have the skills, even though technically you have the schooling, you've proven yourself, you also may feel yourself feeling like a fraud in particular environments. That is simply the symptom of the impostor syndrome. The reason why I want to highlight it at this particular point in time is that if we are actually going to understand that we want to craft a life that is significant with meaning and movement, one of the biggest pitfalls that will keep us stuck from shifting from meaning to that movement, to that transformational stage, is if we fall into the trap of the imposter syndrome. So if you're new to the theory, The imposter syndrome is a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success. In other words, that means even though you have the capability, even though you have the skills, you still feel as if you do not belong in a space, as if you need to apologize for your presence being there, as if you always need to prove yourself worthy. That shows up in perfectionism. That shows up in being the first one in, the last one out, doing everything by yourself, saving the day. That shows up in so many different ways that, quite honestly, we are celebrated for in many environments. However, they cause burnout, they cause stress, and they cause us to be more risk-averse over the span of your career, missing out on promotions, missing out on opportunities, missing out on listening to where it is that you actually want to show up significantly. That tug of war continues on, where even though publicly you're showing up as the face of an organization, maybe privately you're having depressive episodes, maybe you're spiraling, maybe you're beating yourself up constantly thinking, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be here? And so I want to give you some really quick tools to talk about how do you disrupt the process of the imposter syndrome. One of the first things I want you to understand is that you must write a new story. You have to write a new story about your credibility, your capability, as well as your community. Understanding that for your credibility, you must build a case for yourself. So the same way that you would design a product for someone else, the same way you would design an experience, you have to design a case for why you proved to be in a room. So keeping track of your accolades, keeping track of your compliments, keeping track of your achievements, so that when those thoughts start to come, you have evidence that you can show and you can prove to those thoughts that your worst negative fears are not true. They are not justified because you have a record of success. Understanding that sometimes there is some growth and capability needed. So being honest and doing an assessment of what is my capability in a particular way and how can I fill in those gaps. And then finally, identifying in your community, who is my advocate? Who is my champion? Who is going to open doors for me? Who is going to help me as I'm continuing on with these goals? Not just within my organization, but understanding that your destiny is not tied to a role. You are called to make transformation in this earth by helping others, by bringing others forward, and it's regardless of title. Your brand and who you are goes wherever you go. And so understanding you need those three things to really hone in and disrupt the imposter syndrome. Now, after understanding that you are capable and you are ready, there might be some other questions that start pulling up a little bit later. Perhaps you start asking yourself or start saying to yourself, you know, I'm really tired of being the best kept secret. Like, I'm really good, I know I'm good, but everyone else gets credit except for me. Or why is it that I'm always solicited for my opinions, but no one ever says who it came from? Or why is it that I find it difficult just to separate my own identity from what my work is? If you're starting to ask questions like this, then it's not the imposter syndrome that you're dealing with. There might be another pitfall on your way to creating a life of significance with meaning and movement that you need to be aware of. And that's what I call the murky middle. It's very different in that even though it presents as fraudulence and you feeling uneasy with your place somewhere, it's not you doubting your capability. Instead, it's now you doubting your calling. So with the murky middle, similar to the imposter syndrome, all things might be firing on all cylinders. You have your people, you have your career, you have your money, you have your beliefs, but what's missing is your impact. You don't feel like you're making the transformation you need to make. And because of that, everything else now seems imprisoned. Everything else now seems stuck because you are not able to shift to that level of significance that you actually want to shift to. So the murky middle is a collection of feelings of fraudulence fueled by the belief that your life and work is not positioned in alignment with a deeper life's purpose. So while the imposter syndrome will say, I feel like a fraud because I lack skill or knowledge, the murky middle says, I feel misalignment with my life's purpose. While the imposter syndrome talks about doubting your capability, the murky middle talks about doubting your calling. While the imposter syndrome says, I don't belong in this room because I'm not good enough, the murky middle says, I don't belong in this room because I'm supposed to make a bigger impact elsewhere. It is all about calling. And calling, in essence, is where your story meets your purpose. It is the fabric of who you are, the fabric of where who you are meets the essence of why you are to inform what you actually need to do. And we have to be courageous in understanding that may not look like what you are doing now, and that's okay. Because when you step into who you are supposed to be, that requires an exit. There's an exchange that needs to happen. Understanding that you can give yourself permission to evolve. And so if we're dealing with the murky middle, there's some elevated questions we need to ask ourselves. If it didn't need to make sense to anyone, what would I spend my time creating? Who would I spend my time helping? What are my natural gifts? What do people always ask me to do for them? How do they improve the world? And how can I harness that in order to increase my daily productivity? Who are the most important people in my life, both at work and outside of it? And how do I build more relationships with them? How do I get to know them better? Understanding that this is a communal process. If you're creating transformation in the world, you have to also care about the people that you're going to be helping. Who am I helping both inside and outside of my job? And what more can I do to help others at work? How can I improve my everyday? What steps do I need to take to be courageous and show up and disrupt the status quo? In order to shift from just a life of meaning to a life of movement, we have to be aware of the pitfalls that can come in between. We have to understand that there's a pitfall of the impostor syndrome. We have to understand that there's a pitfall of the murky middle. And you must know the difference, especially as you are advancing and especially as you are feeling called to do something greater. Understand that for the impostor syndrome, the solution is confidence. You need to build confidence in your capability. But for the murky middle, you need courage. Mainly because it's not going to look like something that you might have done naturally. It might not make sense to everyone. It might scare you. But it being a courageous decision does not absolve you from needing to take the steps, because the nagging will persist until you honor with integrity what you feel called to do. So once again, similar to this marvel that we see in South Korea, you are indeed not special. You are actually a masterpiece in the making, who's ready to take the next courageous step. Thank you so much for your time. That is my time for today.